Sometimes it don't take much to carry a person back. Just the smell of something baking, cinnamon, butter, a little sugar crisping on the edges. Lord have mercy, that smell came drifting through my kitchen this morning, and before I could even reach for the oven mitts, I was already back in 1972, standing barefoot on that old tile floor, with the radio hummin', Patsy Cline, and the late sunlight slantin' through the lace curtains. Funny, isn't it, how time don't ask permission? It just slips its hand in yours and pulls you back without a sound. I was making apple pie, just like I used to, when my Harold was still with me. He always said I made the best crust in 3 counties back in my day. He'd tease, women made pie like it was a love letter. I'd swat him with the dish towel and pretend to fuss, but truth is, he was right. I did put my whole heart into those pies. Into everything. That was just the way things were back then. And as I was peeling them apples this morning, I swear I could hear his footsteps coming down the hall. My heart jumped, just for a second, like maybe time had folded in on itself. Like maybe I'd turn around and see him standing there with that crooked smile, wearing that awful flannel shirt he refused to throw out. But of course, it was just the house creakin', settlin' into its bones. Still, it got me thinkin', got me feelin'. There's a story I've kept to myself for many years now. Most days, I let it sit quiet in the corners of my mind, like a photo in a drawer. It's there, that you don't look at it too often. But today, I can't quite tuck it away like I used to. Maybe it's the pie. Maybe it's the way the wind caught the screen door this morning and made it slam, just like it used to when the kids ran in for supper. Or maybe it's just time. You see, I didn't know it was our last day together. If I had, well, I might have done things a little different. I might have said more. Or less. I don't know. But I would have noticed. I would have held on to that day with both hands instead of letting it slip by like any other Tuesday. Ain't that just the way? We never know when the ordinary turns holy. That's what's been on my heart today. That last day. The one that looked like any other, but it wasn't. And if you've ever loved somebody so deep it ached, and then lost, sudden or slow, it don't matter, then maybe you'll understand why I'm telling this now. So I'm gonna pour myself some tea, and if you'll sit with me a while, I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you about a man named Harold, and the last supper we shared, and how I can still taste the pie, even all these years later. But I'll warn you, it ain't a story with a big finish. There ain't no dramatic twist. Just a woman sittin' here rememberin', because some stories don't need fixin'. They just need tellin'. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs to hear it. Now then, let me take you back to that afternoon. September 17th, 1972. The sky was the color of worn denim, and the air smelled like the end of summer. That was the day everything changed, and I didn't even know it yet. I think back sometimes to a time when the world still felt small enough to hold in your 2 hands. Back when summers were longer, or at least they felt longer, and nobody ever locked their front doors. I grew up just outside of Jackson, Mississippi, in a white clapboard house that leaned a little to one side, like it was tired from standing so long. We had a porch that wrapped around the front like a mother's arms, and a cherry tree out back that never gave more than 4 or 5 good fruits a year, but Lord, they were sweet. I was a barefoot girl with a ribbon in my hair and skinned knees that stayed skinned most of the summer. We didn't have much, didn't have a pot to pee in, as Mama used to say, but we made do with what we had. Daddy worked at the feed store, and Mama took in mending and made her own soap out back with lye and ashes. And I swear to you, I never felt poor. Not one day. That was just the way things were back then. I remember sitting on the edge of the porch, swinging my feet, watching the fireflies come out while the cicadas sang their sad little songs. I used to dream of big things. I thought maybe I'd be a singer, or a teacher, or go all the way to New York City and learn to dance like the ladies on television. But I also dreamed small of a house with curtains I sewed myself, and a man who came home whistling, and Sunday dinners with sweet tea and roast chicken. I thought the world was kind, and that if you loved people, they'd love you back. I believed, and maybe this is foolish now, but I believed people always came back if you waited long enough. I met Harold when I was 16. He worked at the Texaco just off Highway 51, always had a bit of grease on his collar and a slow, quiet smile that made my stomach do somersaults. He was no movie star, but he had that look in his eye like he saw you. Really saw you. And when he said my name, it sounded softer somehow. I reckon that's when the story started, though I didn't know it yet. We courted the old-fashioned way, church picnics, drive-in movies, sittin' under the stars, talking about nothing. He'd bring me a single carnation every Friday, said he couldn't afford roses, but one flower meant he was thinking of me, just me. Land sakes alive, I kept every one of those flowers pressed between pages of my Bible. They're still there. I married him in a borrowed dress on a warm September morning, with my sister singing in the garden and Mama crying into her gloves. I was 17 and thought I knew everything. Truth is, I knew nothing, but I had love, and back then, we figured love was enough. And sometimes it was. Life wasn't easy. We had lean years and hungry winters, but he never let me go to bed feeling alone. He had a heart of gold, bless his soul, and he taught me patience, taught me how to wait without bitterness. And that's the kind of woman I became, a waitin' woman, a hopin' woman, a woman who believed that the best things in life came slow and quiet, like spring after a long frost. You know, back then, I didn't know what grief was. Not really. I thought it only lived in books or faraway families. I didn't know it could wear your face and sleep in your bed. But that's not where we are yet. Not just yet. For now, let me take you back to that little white house, the smell of biscuits in the oven, and my Harold waiting out front with 2 cups of coffee and that crooked smile, like he was always just happy to see me. And Lord, what I wouldn't give to go back and sit beside him just one more time. I remember it plain as day, hotter and blue blazes that afternoon, and Mama had sent me to fetch a jar of pickles and a bag of flour from the little store just past the grain mill. We didn't have air conditioning back then, just sweat and hand fans and the hope of shade under a sycamore. I borrowed my sister's bicycle, the one with the squeaky brakes and one handlebar wrapped in tape, and rode slow, careful not to let my dress catch in the chain. I was 16 and restless in a way I didn't yet understand. You know that feeling, when life feels like it's standing just around the corner, waiting on you to notice it. And there he was, right out front of the Texaco, leaning against the gas pump like it was his porch. Harold. He had a rag slung over his shoulder and a cigarette hanging loose from his lip, though I don't think he ever really smoked it. Just chewed it when he was thinking. His shirt was rolled at the sleeves, grease on his hands, and he had this quiet way of watching the world like he knew something it didn't. I'd seen him once or twice before, but never up close. That day, Lord, that day was different. He looked at me, just looked, and I felt it a thump in my chest like someone dropped a book on my ribs. I couldn't explain it, not then. I just remember the way the air changed, like the whole world had leaned in to listen. My heart beat a little faster, but I kept pedaling like I hadn't noticed. Of course I had. You always notice the moment your story starts, even if you don't know it yet. I went in, got what Mama asked for, tried to act like my hands weren't shaking, and when I came back out, he was still there, still watching. He tipped his head and said, "Hot day, ain't it?" Simple as that, but there was something in the way he said it, like he wasn't talking about the weather at all. Now I know what folks say, that love at first sight is for movies and books. But I'll tell you what, sometimes your soul just knows. And mine did. Something in me leaned forward that day, even if my feet kept moving away. I didn't say much, just nodded and mumbled, sure as, and tried to keep my face from blushing. But from that moment on, he was in my thoughts like a tune I couldn't shake. I started finning reasons to ride past the station, made up errands, spent more time on my hair than was decent for a girl who wasn't going nowhere special. And over time, he started talking more. Asked about my folks, said he liked the way I laughed, told me I reminded him of spring. Lord, what a thing to say to a girl who barely knew her own heart yet. But somehow he saw me not just who I was, but who I could be. That summer changed everything. Not all at once, life never does. But that day, standing in the heat with a sack of flour in one hand and my heart hanging out the other, I felt the first real tremble of what would become the rest of my life. Harold wasn't just a boy at a gas pump. He was the chapter one didn't know was coming. The kind of soul that walks into your world quiet and leaves a mark you'll trace with your fingers for the rest of your days. And Lord, if I'd only known where it all would lead. It wasn't long after that summer of sweetness that the wind started changing. You know how it goes. When everything's good, you hardly notice time moving. But when trouble comes, it comes fast and with both hands. Harold and I were courting regular by then, sneaking out to the river on Sundays after church, holding hands in the movie house, when we thought no one was looking. He talked about getting his own garage one day, and I talked about a little white house with blue curtains and a baby swing out back. But dreams got a way of hitting walls when the world don't share 'em. My daddy never did like Harold. Thought he wasn't good enough, said he had no prospects and too much quiet in his eyes. Daddy was a hard man, proud and loud, and he thought love should look like land deeds and calloused hands, not soft words and flowers on Fridays. When Harold came by to ask proper if he could take me to the county dance, Daddy said no. Just like that. Didn't explain. Just shut the door in his face and told me to start thinking about boys with real futures. I was so mad I couldn't see straight. Cried into my pillow that whole night. But underneath the anger was something worse, shame. Shame that I didn't stand up for him. Shame that I let my daddy's voice sound louder than my own heart. I was 17, and my world still turned on what other people thought of me. I didn't know how to be brave yet. I wish I had. Harold didn't get angry. He never did. He just looked at me that next Sunday, with those steady eyes of his, and said, "It's all right. We'll find another way." And I wanted to believe him. I really did, but something inside me cracked. That first tiny split between what I felt and what I could say. You ever had that? That moment where your heart's screaming but your mouth stays shut. It wasn't just Daddy either. The town had its opinions, same as any small place. Folks whispered that Harold's people weren't much, that his mama drank too much and his brother ran off to Louisiana with a married woman. They looked at me, the preacher's granddaughter, and said I could do better. And I started to wonder if maybe they were right. Not because I stopped loving him. Lord, no. But because I didn't yet know how to carry love that other folks wouldn't bless. That was the start of the storm, not a fight, not a tragedy, just doubt. And doubt's a quiet thing, but it'll rot a beam faster than fire if you don't catch it early. I didn't know how to talk to Harold about it. I didn't want him to see my weakness. So I smiled and held his hand and kissed him under the magnolia tree like nothing was wrong, while something inside me pulled tighter and tighter. He must have felt it. I think back now, and I see it, the way his smile got smaller around the edges, the way he lingered a second longer when he let go of my hand. That he didn't press. That was the kind of man he was. He gave me space when what I needed was someone to fight for me. I look back on that time and I ache not because we fought, but because we didn't. Because I let silence win. And silence is a cruel thing, child. It'll trick you into thinking you're protecting someone when really you're just letting them drift away. If only I'd spoken then. If only I'd found the courage before it all started unraveling. But back then, I was just a girl, caught between love and fear, and Lord, fear always sounds louder. I remember the sound of the phone, not the ring-on back then. It was just a sharp, shrill ring that echoed through the house like it knew something you didn't. I was folding laundry, sun still high in the sky, the scent of fresh cotton and lemon soap all around me. The pie was cooling on the counter. It was Tuesday, just a regular Tuesday. That's the cruelest part. How regular it all felt. And then the phone rang. I didn't run. Why would I? Trouble don't knock first, not when it's real. I picked it up with one hand, towel still in the other. Hello. And on the other end, silence first, then a voice I didn't know. A man, gentle, careful, like he was holding something delicate. He said there'd been an accident. A tire blowout. Highway 7. He said the name Harold and my knees just went. I dropped the towel. I don't remember the rest of what he said. Just the sound of the wall clock ticking, and then it stopped. It really did. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean the old wooden clock above the mantel, the one his daddy gave us as a wedding gift, just stopped dead at 5:47 p.m. That was the moment he left this world. And I know, 'cause I was there, not at the scene, but here, standing in that kitchen, holding a towel, smelling apple pie, and suddenly the world was split in two, before and after. I dropped the phone, fell to my knees right there on the linoleum. I didn't cry, not right away. I just couldn't breathe, like the air had been sucked out the room, and all that was left was that clock ticking in my ears, until it didn't. They said he didn't feel a thing, that it was quick, that it was nobody's fault. But that didn't make it better. It didn't fix the fact that I never got to say goodbye, that our last words were about picking up eggs and how the weather was turning. I didn't kiss him longer that morning. I didn't tell him I was sorry for holding back, for doubting, for ever letting fear get between us. I thought we had more time. Lord have mercy, don't we all? That night, the house was too quiet. I sat in the rocker, staring at the spot where his boots usually sat. I pulled the pie closer, but I couldn't eat. I remember touching the crust, still warm, and thinking how he'd never tasted. That broke me. Not the crush. Not the call. The pie. You want to know what grief is? It's not always the big things. Sometimes it's a pie on a Tuesday and the silence of a clock that forgot how to tick. Something in me died with him. Not all of me, but a part. The part that believed love was always safe if it was real. That if you were good and kind and waited long enough, life would give you back the same in return. I stopped singing to the radio. I stopped riding my bike. I wore his flannel shirt around the house for months, just to feel something that didn't leave. I didn't go to the funeral. Ain't that something? I stood outside the church, but I couldn't make my feet move. I sat under that old magnolia tree where we kissed the first time, and I just talked to him, told him everything I hadn't, everything I thought we had more time for. I don't know when I started breathing again, but I did, and I guess that's the thing about pain. It don't kill you. It just sits with you, quiet like an old friend, reminding you what you had and what you lost. The first thing I remember after the funeral wasn't people. It wasn't flowers or casseroles or the sound of hymns. It was the silence. Real, bone-deep silence. The kind that don't just fill a room, it lives there. The house was too quiet, like even the walls were holding their breath. And I reckon, in a way, so was I. The days blurred. Morning turned to evening and back again without a skin permission. I still got up, still made the bed, still put on a pot of coffee. That's the strange thing, how your hands keep working long after your heart's quit. I'd set the table for one without thinking, then just stare at that empty chair across from me, wondering how a whole man could vanish and still leave his shape in the air. I didn't talk much. I didn't go to church. Folks came by at first, with covered dishes and worried eyes, but I couldn't bear their kindness. Kindness hurts when it touches places you ain't ready to feel. I stopped answering the door. Sat on the porch some days, wrapped in Harold's old flannel, watching the swing move in the breeze, like maybe he was still sitting there, just quiet. And the nights? Lord, the nights were the worst. You lie in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak, every clock tick, waiting for nothing at all, and somehow still hoping. I'd reach out sometimes, half asleep, like muscle memory, searching for his hand. But it was always just cool sheets. I didn't dream much in those months. And when I did, they weren't kind. I'd see him in the garage, humming to himself, or walking in the front door like nothing happened, like maybe the phone call was a mistake. I'd wake up crying and feel foolish, like a child afraid of thunder. But grief don't care how old you are. It knocks you right back to the softest part of yourself. I lost pieces of me I didn't even know were mine. My laugh changed. My hands moved slower. I stopped singing while I cooked. I didn't care about holidays. The world kept turning. Folks got married, had babies, planted gardens, painted fences. But I was paused, like something in me refused to catch up, like I was waiting for the world to notice what it had lost. My faith, it didn't vanish, but it cracked. I still believed in God, but I didn't talk to him much. I figured he already knew I was angry. What kind of God takes a man like Harold and leaves behind all these empty chairs? But I also knew, deep down, Harold wouldn't have wanted me to sit in that bitterness too long. He was the kind who found light even on cloudy days. And so I tried. I really did. One day at a time, I swept the floors, fed the chickens, watered the roses, even though I hated looking at 'em without him. I wore his flannel till the elbows wore through. Then I folded it, real gentle, and put it in the cedar chest with the Bible and his pocket knife. I wasn't the same woman anymore. That girl who believed love always meant forever, she was gone. But in her place was someone else, someone quieter, maybe stronger, though I didn't feel it then. A woman who knew that joy can shatter, and yet still be worth the risk. And in all that silence, I started hearing myself again. Not all at once, just a whisper at first. But it was there, beneath the sorrow, beneath the stillness, the first soft breath of who I might become next. You know, there comes a moment after a long winter of the soul when the first light sneaks through the cracks, soft and hesitant, but enough to warm your face. It wasn't sudden, not like flicking a switch, but it was real. One little thing after another, like pieces of a puzzle finding their way home. I didn't see it coming, but I felt it deep down that maybe the story wasn't finished yet. It started with the mail. That's right, the mail. One afternoon, I found a letter tucked in the mailbox, nothing fancy, just a card from Mrs. Johnson down the street, inviting me to come by for tea and a visit. I remember holding it in my hand, feeling that old hesitance swirl up in my chest. I wanted to say no. I wanted to stay in my quiet little shell. But something made me say yes instead. Lord have mercy, I'm glad I did. Mrs. Johnson was the kind of woman who smiled with her eyes, the kind that knows pain but won't let it steal her shine. We sat on her porch, drinking sweet tea and watching the sky turn pink. She listened to my stories, all the good ones, and the ones I'd been too scared to tell anyone. And when I finished, she said, "Honey, you don't have to carry it all alone." Simple words, but they felt like a lifeline. After that day, I started taking small steps. I cleaned the garden, planted marigolds Harold always loved, and watched them bloom like little suns. I picked up my old guitar from the corner and strummed a few rusty chords, even if the notes were shaky. I started talking to folks again, not just nodding at the store, but really talking. I even went to church one Sunday. Didn't stay long, but just being there, hearing the choir, feeling the pew beneath me, it reminded me that life still had rhythm. That grace was still there, even if I'd forgotten how to reach for it. And maybe the biggest thing was when I helped little Susie from next door find her lost kitten. I was out on the porch swing, thinking about nothing, when she came running, tears and all. We searched under bushes and behind the barn, Logan and Callan, that stubborn cat's name, until he finally popped out like a furry ghost. Susie hugged me tight and said, "Thank you, Grandma." And in that moment, I felt like maybe I mattered again. It's funny how the smallest moments can change the whole course of a life. A letter, a garden, a lost kitten, nothing grand, but each one a step away from the darkness. And with every step, my heart grew a little lighter. I don't pretend the pain's gone. It isn't. Some days, it's still heavy as a stone in my chest. But I'm learning that grief and hope can live side by side, that you don't have to forget the past to move forward. You just have to keep breathing one day, one moment at a time. So here I am, sitting on my porch, watching the sunset, feeling the breeze on my face. And I'm thinking maybe Harold was right all along. Life is worth fighting for, even when it breaks your heart. Because sometimes, after the darkest night, there comes a dawn. I reckon there comes a time in every person's life when the weight of what's behind you feels almost too much to bear. Like you're carrying a sack full of stones that never gets lighter, no matter how many days go by. For a long time, I thought that was how it'd be for me, trapped under memories and might-have-beens, with no way out but to sink under the weight. But then something shifted. I don't know if it was the spring sun or the kindness of a stranger, but one morning I woke up and made a choice. A hard choice. The kind that don't come easy, but one you know you have to make. I chose to live. Not just to breathe, but to live. To take the pieces of my broken heart and build something new with them. I chose to carry Harold's memory with me, not as a chain that binds me down, but as a light to guide me forward. It wasn't forgetting. No, ma'am, and it sure wasn't pretending the pain wasn't there. But it was choosing to stop letting that pain rule my every day. I remember that morning clear as day. I was sitting on the porch, just like I do now, holding an old photo of Harold and me from the day we got married. His smile was crooked, just like I remembered, and his eyes shone with that quiet kind of love that used to make me feel safe, no matter the world's troubles. I looked at that picture, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel that sinking ache. Instead, I felt a kind of peace, like maybe, just maybe, he was saying it was all right to go on. So I did what you do when you're ready to lay down your burdens. I found the box of his things, the worn-out boots, the flannel shirts, the letters I'd never sent. And I sat with them one last time. I whispered thank yous to every thread, every crease, every memory tucked inside. Then I packed the box away, not out of forgetfulness, but out of love and respect. I wasn't letting go of him. I was letting go of the hold grief had on me. I decided to open my heart again, to the world, to love, to life. I started walking down the road to the grocery store instead of driving. I baked more pies, even if no one was sitting at the table across from me. I picked up the guitar again and sang to the wind, for Harold and for me. And slowly, day by day, the world got a little brighter. I learned that holding on too tight to the past only made it harder to hold on to the present. You young folks wouldn't understand the strength it takes to choose hope over despair. It ain't easy, not by a long shot, but it's worth it. Because life keeps moving, and if you don't move with it, you get left behind. So I chose. I chose to forgive myself, Harold, the things that never were and the things that were more complicated than I ever knew. I chose to stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect person, the perfect day. I chose to live with the grace I've been given and to find joy where I can. And you know what? That choice changed everything. It didn't erase the past, but it gave me a way to carry it without breaking. It gave me the courage to face tomorrow without fear. And most of all, it gave me peace. I won't say it was easy. It wasn't. But it was worth it. Because at the end of the day, I'm still here. Still breathing. Still loving. Still choosing. And that, my dear, is enough. You know, I've lived long enough to see how the years can change a person. Not just on the outside, but deep down where the heart beats steady and true. When I was young, I thought I had all the answers, or at least, I thought I knew what life was supposed to look like. Love, family, hard work, and faith. And sure, those things matter. Lord, how they matter. But what I didn't understand back then, what no one really tells you, is that life isn't neat. It doesn't follow the plans you make or the dreams you hold. It's messy, it's wild, and it's beautiful in ways you never expect. I lost Harold too soon. That's a truth I carry with me every day. But losing him taught me something I didn't see when we were young and full of hope. It taught me that time is a precious, fleeting thing. That the moments we think are ordinary might just be the most important ones we ever have. That love isn't just about grand gestures or words shouted across a room. Sometimes it's the quiet things, the small kindnesses, the holding on when the world feels like it's falling apart. I've come to understand that waiting for the right time, or the perfect moment, is a trap. It's a way we tell ourselves it's okay to put off what matters most. You young folks, you're always looking ahead, planning, dreaming, waiting. But sometimes the heart knows its own time, and it won't wait for the calendar to catch up. You have to live now. Not someday, not after this or that. But this moment, right here, right now. Maybe it's a hard lesson. Maybe it's one that comes wrapped in pain and loss. But it's a truth worth holding on to. Because when I look back, the days I cherish most aren't the ones that made headlines or changed the world. They're the ones where someone I loved smiled at me over a cup of coffee, where hands met in silence, where forgiveness was whispered instead of shouted. I want you to know, and I say this from the bottom of my heart, don't wait to say what you need to say. Don't wait to show love or ask for forgiveness or take that chance. Life will always have reasons to hold you back, that your heart won't. It won't give you a second warning. It just beats on, whether you listen or not. And if you do listen, if you dare to live fully, to love fiercely, to forgive freely, then you'll find something wonderful. You'll find peace. Not the kind that means everything's perfect, but the kind that means you've made peace with what is. The kind that means you're brave enough to keep going, even when the road's rough. I'm not saying life's easy. It ain't. But it's worth it. Every tear, every smile, every heartbeat. And maybe the biggest wisdom I found is this. It's okay to be broken. It's okay to feel lost. Because that's where the healing starts. That's where you find out what you're made of. So maybe it's time to stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect words, the perfect person. Maybe it's time to live like today is the only day you've got because, in a way, it is. And when you do, you'll understand what I've come to know. That love doesn't die with the people we lose. It stays with us, like a quiet song in the back of our minds, like the smell of apple pie on a summer afternoon. It stays, and it carries us forward, long after the clock has stopped ticking. You know, after all these years of carrying this story around like a secret, I'm glad to finally share it with you. It's more than just memories or old photographs. It's a piece of my heart laid bare, a testament to love, loss, and the quiet hope that lingers long after the storm has passed. I want you to know, this story isn't just about the past. No, ma'am, it's about today and tomorrow and every breath we take in between. Because the things that touch us, the people we hold dear, they don't stay locked away in dusty boxes or forgotten like old songs. They live in the way we carry them forward, in the choices we make, the kindness we show, the love we keep alive in the little things. Sometimes when the evening breeze whispers through the trees and the fireflies start their dance, I sit here on this porch and I wonder if Harold ever thinks of me the way I think of him. If he remembers the soft summer nights, the laughter, the apple pie cooling on the windowsill. Sometimes I swear I can feel his presence, not like a shadow or a ghost, but like a gentle hand resting on my shoulder, steady and warm. And that makes me ask myself, and now I ask you, do you believe in a love that finds its way back? A love that doesn't end with goodbye, but bends through time and distance and loss to touch us again? I do. I believe that some loves are too strong to ever really leave us, that they stay woven into the very fabric of who we are. Maybe that's why this story still holds a place in my heart. Not because it's perfect or painless, but because it's real. Because it's a reminder that love, the kind that changes us, that shapes our lives, it never truly fades. It lives on in the quiet moments, the memories that catch us off guard, the dreams that keep us reaching higher. And you know what? I think that's the kind of love we all need to hold on to. The kind that gives us courage when the night feels dark. The kind that teaches us forgiveness when we feel broken. The kind that whispers, even when the world is loud and heavy, that we are never alone. So, as you listen to my story, I hope you carry a little piece of it with you. I hope it reminds you to tell the people you love how much they mean to you. Not tomorrow, not next week, but today. Because we never know when the last day might come. And sometimes, I reckon, it's the small things, a touch, a word, a memory, that keep love alive long after we're gone. And maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest gift of all. I thank you for sitting with me here, for listening to my heart. And I leave you with this question, one that's been with me for a lifetime. Do you believe that true love, once found, can find its way back to us? Sometimes, when the night is still and the stars are bright, I like to think it does. That somewhere, somehow, Harold remembers. And maybe, just maybe, he's sitting on a porch somewhere, looking up at the same sky, thinking of me too. And that, dear friend, is a thought worth holding close.